I've said it before and I'll say it again. Something seismic is happening in Western Canada, and if you thought Alberta's sovereignty fight was the end of it, think again. Tonight, the spotlight shifts onto not one but two provinces, Alberta and Saskatchewan. Together, they have dropped what might be the most explosive political bombshell in Canadian history, the declaration that they are openly preparing for U.S. statehood. That's right. We are not talking about some quiet debate in a think tank, not a fringe rally in the prairies, but an official political movement endorsed at the highest levels. The idea of Alberta becoming the 51st state has floated around for years. It was dismissed, mocked, even laughed out of Ottawa. But now, with Saskatchewan standing shoulder to shoulder, the dream, or the nightmare, depending on where you sit, is suddenly real. Prime Minister Mark Carney is scrambling to contain the fallout, while south of the border, Donald Trump is smiling wider than anyone. He's calling it the deal of the century. Let's be clear. This didn't come out of nowhere. For years, Western provinces have accused Ottawa of exploiting their resources while ignoring their people. Oil, gas, agriculture, the very backbone of Canada's economy comes from Alberta and Saskatchewan, yet when it comes time to share wealth or representation, these provinces say they get scraps. And with Carney pushing green energy mandates, higher taxes, and more federal oversight, the West finally snapped. Now, think about the timing. Alberta's Danielle Smith has been carefully maneuvering, testing the waters with talk of sovereignty, autonomy, and opting out of federal programs. Meanwhile, Saskatchewan's Scott Moe has been equally frustrated, threatening to chart his own course. But this is different. By announcing plans for U.S. statehood, they're throwing down a challenge not just to Ottawa, but to the very idea of Canada itself. And what a challenge it is. Imagine the map of North America redrawn, Alberta and Saskatchewan transformed into the 51st and 52nd states of the United States of America. Suddenly, Washington gains energy security, vast farmland, and two loyal conservative strongholds. Trump has already hinted that he would welcome them with open arms, saying it would make America even greater. And you can bet he sees it as a legacy move, one that would go down in history books forever. But here's the question that keeps Canadians awake tonight. What happens to the rest of the country if this goes through? Does Manitoba follow suit? Does British Columbia, long torn between East and West, decide that its future lies south of the border as well? And if Alberta and Saskatchewan leave, can Ottawa even afford to keep the lights on in the Federation? Because make no mistake, the financial hit would be catastrophic. Billions in tax revenue gone. The heart of Canada's energy supply gone. The prairie breadbasket gone. Mark Carney is panicking. Insiders say he has summoned emergency cabinet meetings, warning that if even one province legally exits, the dominoes will not stop. He's trying to project confidence, but the truth is, Ottawa doesn't have a playbook for this. There is no clear law for provinces seceding to join a foreign nation. It's uncharted territory, and the uncertainty is shaking markets, spooking investors, and rattling alliances. Meanwhile, Danielle Smith and Scott Moe are playing it cool. They're framing this as not a betrayal of Canada, but as a survival strategy. They argue that joining the U.S. isn't about abandoning Canadian values, it's about protecting Western families from Ottawa's overreach. They're pointing to higher living costs, skyrocketing energy bills, and stalled pipelines as proof that the Federation no longer works. And honestly, a lot of Albertans and Saskatchewanians agree. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. Reports suggest that secret negotiations are already underway between representatives from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and senior U.S. officials. Nothing official has been signed, but insiders claim that Washington is preparing a roadmap for integration, currency conversion, defense integration, border controls, even dual citizenship provisions. If that's true, then this isn't just political theater. It's real, it's happening, and it could unfold faster than anyone imagined. Now, put yourself in Trump's shoes. For a man who thrives on spectacle and winning, this is the ultimate victory. Two energy-rich, conservative provinces walking into America's arms? He gets to humiliate Ottawa, dominate the energy market, and reshape global geopolitics in one stroke. You can bet he will not let this slip through his fingers. But let's not underestimate the risks. The moment Alberta and Saskatchewan take concrete steps toward U.S. statehood, Ottawa could retaliate. Border blockades, trade restrictions, even threats to freeze federal funding. Some whisper that Carney may even consider calling in the military to enforce federal authority. The word crisis doesn't even begin to cover it. It would be nothing short of a constitutional war. And what about Canadians themselves? Polls in the prairies show rising support for separation, but across the rest of the country, people are in shock. To many in Ontario and Quebec, this feels like betrayal. To others, it feels inevitable. And to some, it feels like the final chapter of a country that was always held together more by habit than by unity. And here's what almost no one is talking about: the financial earthquake this move would unleash. Alberta and Saskatchewan don't just bring oil and gas to the table. They bring farmland that feeds millions, potash that fuels global agriculture, and trade corridors that connect the Pacific to the heart of the continent. If those resources suddenly shift under American jurisdiction, Ottawa's balance sheets collapse overnight. Billions in federal transfers would vanish, leaving provinces like Quebec and the Maritimes facing a fiscal black hole. You think deficits are bad now? Imagine a Canada without Alberta's energy royalties or Saskatchewan's resource exports. That's not a deficit, it's bankruptcy territory. And the world is watching. In London, Berlin, Beijing, and yes, in Moscow, diplomats are scrambling to understand what this means for global markets. Some see opportunity. China would love to bypass Ottawa and cut direct deals with a Trump White House controlling Alberta oil. Others see danger. The breakup of Canada could embolden separatist movements everywhere, from Scotland to Catalonia. Suddenly, the Canadian crisis isn't just a Canadian story. It's global. But maybe the biggest question is one I'll leave you with tonight. If Alberta and Saskatchewan do become the 51st and 52nd states, what happens to the very idea of Canada? A nation that prided itself on stability, compromise, and quiet diplomacy, reduced to a shrinking federation clinging to survival. Will Ottawa fight back, or will history record this as the moment when Canada began to unravel, one province at a time? So where does this leave us tonight? On the edge of history. Alberta and Saskatchewan are no longer whispering about sovereignty, they're shouting about statehood. Trump is waiting with open arms. Carney is cornered. And the fate of Canada as we know it hangs by a thread. Mark my words, this is not some regional spat. This is a geopolitical earthquake, and when the dust settles, North America may never look the same again. And before we continue breaking this down, don't forget, if you want to stay ahead of every twist in this unfolding story, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this isn't just politics. It's history in the making, and you deserve to know exactly how it plays out.